Hello everybody, I hope you can all hear me. I hope I am live. I'm going to do the usual thing of whizzing over to my YouTube channel just to make sure I'm live, and I think I am. Hurrah! Right, so welcome to this month's live sketch-along. Let me sign into the chat, then I can see where everybody is. If you're watching live, send me a note, say hi. It would be lovely to hear from you. As ever, if you have any questions, do let me know. My hair's going to get in the way. I'm trying to put it up. It's so hot. Do let me know if you have any questions. Drop them in the chat. You need to be subscribed to my channel to be able to chat to me live, but you absolutely can do that. It's super easy to do. And then as soon as you're subscribed, you can enter into the chat, and I will answer questions, because that's what we are here for. So I hope everybody can see and hear me. Oh, what's this doing now? Bear with, it's asking me to do things. There's always, every month there is something. However, this month I am not ill, I am well, woohoo! So that is fabulous. I don't know what this is doing now. It's just not giving me access to the chat, which is ridiculous. Oh, hurrah, I've got access. Hello, Andre. Hello, Karen. Yay! At last it works. So this is, like I say, our monthly live sketch along. And today I thought we would do something a little bit different. So normally I always sketch from an object from life, because, you know, that's what observation is. And sketching is, it's practicing, it's looking, it's playing, it's experimenting. But this month I thought we would do something a little bit different, because I thought we'd look at other people's sketchbooks. So what did the old masters use their sketchbooks for? And there's some lovely examples. Do I happen to have an example here that I can show you? Last weekend I was looking around the Chateau de Clos-Lucy, which is where Leonardo da Vinci lived for the last 3 years of his life. And it was fascinating because, again, lots of little sketchbook entries. And Leonardo was fabulous because he did all these. You might not be able to see that. This is a postcard I picked up. Do like picking up postcards of his sketchbook. Fascinating. He just loved playing with ideas. But what I thought I would like to concentrate on this month is dances and capturing movement, which I know we all find really tricky. I mean, sketching people quickly, we all remember that one, right? So this time I thought we'd look at Degas, because I printed out the pictures here, but I do have them on my screen so I can pop up. Bear with. Let me see. So, Degas, love Degas. So what he's doing here, this is 3 proprietary little sketches that he was using, which helped create, of course, his famous sculpture of the young dancer, which is on display in, is it Le Louvre or the Musée d'Orsay? It's in Paris. It's in one of them. It might be in the Musée d'Orsay. Anyway, one of those two. And it's stunning. It's a beautiful sculpture. But in order to create that sculpture, he needed to look at different views of poses. So he would do these quick sketches to sort of get a hint, get an idea. So he would draw initially from life, and then he would use his imagination and his studies to create other drawings. And Leonardo da Vinci did the same as well. You'd see a lot in his sketchbooks of just hands. Sorry, I've got paint all over my hands. I've been helping my mother decorate, doing skirting boards. delightful, and subsequently got more of it on me than I did anywhere else, par for the course. So yes, so Leonardo da Vinci, you'll see lots, and not just Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Dietrich, lots of Whistler, Sargent, they tended to do these little studies of particular bits. So you don't have to do a whole study of a whole composition. They often did things like hands. So you'd see in their sketchbooks them playing with just hands. How did the hands fit? Were they happy with how it worked? And then you'd see that sketch fitting into the composition when they painted a picture. So it was really quite fascinating. I am getting on. We are going to get to drawing in a moment, because the other one I wanted to show you, let's turn that off again and just put this one on. This is a perfect example of him looking at contrasts, and he's not interested in the full picture. He doesn't in the skirt. He's you're an artist, I would expect nothing less. Yes. Should see me with oil paints, honestly. So much colour everywhere. You can tell what I'm painting usually because it's in my hair. So yes, so he did, you don't have to do the whole sketch. It's just a quick study of movement. Here's another example. That one was using oils. So he sometimes used oil paint thinned down with a lot of thinner and over a linen tinted canvas just to get an idea of shapes and colours. Let me have a little look at the other one here. This is another one. This is done with chalk and charcoal, again using tinted paper. So you'll notice all of Degas that I've shown are using tinted paper, and that's because it gives you a nice base. You can start seeing the highlights if you're not going from a white background, because of course if you go from a white, it's really difficult to see those highlights. So a lot of artists, and I do this as well, will tint canvases, will tint paper. If I look at my sketchbook, she says quite cheerfully, locating said sketchbook, I will often tint pages before I actually, so I will colour pages in with ink. So for example, that one I haven't actually done anything on yet. I haven't found a subject I liked that's going to fit on that. I put some ink on these and then drew over them. So it gives you something where, that's a good example actually, because you can see I wouldn't have got those highlights if I was going straight onto white, but by going onto that purple, it really makes those whites pop and you can then actually see them better. Do I have any other examples in here? A lot of my like I say, my sketchbooks, I will randomly colour pages, and then I've got a choice whenever I'm out and about sketching as to what I can use. That was again another purple that I quite liked, and because it works well with the green and the yellow. And then that's the wrong way up. And again, a green base, just because it pulls out that white, you can then see it. So having pre-coloured pages is a really useful tool in your sketchbook arsenal. So I'm going to use some tanned paper. So what I'm using today is, what is it? She says, Strathmore toned tan. I use their grey a lot as well, but because Degas here is using the tan, I'm going to use tan as well. Let me put that back on my easel. The other thing you notice actually looking at this particular dancer is he's divided his paper up with a little bit of a grid. White charcoal for the highlights, absolutely, Andrew, yes. So you can use white charcoal for the highlights, or they would often use a pastel stick. So you can get some quite hard white pastel sticks like this. I just happen to have this on my desk. Or yes, compressed charcoal is white charcoal, really good for using highlights. So what I noticed on this piece, I mean, I'm sure he actually does it in most of his sketches, but in this one you can actually see it really clearly, is he's used a bit of a grid. So when he's looking at his proportions for his height, for his dancers. In fact, I think we'll do this one as our little copy initially because of this. And he's kind of split the paper up into, I imagine what he will have done is done it into quarters, and this, you can't really tell with these photographs because you don't know whether they've cropped part of what he's done, so you do have to be mindful of that. But what he seems to have done here is there's a line. Let me see if I can just bring this down a little bit so you can see the top of that. You'll see the line at the top of her head there, and he's kind of divided, so the halfway mark, which if you're sketching people quickly you know is about the sort of hip level, and you see it here, she's got her hip tight, slightly tilted, so you can see that halfway mark, and then the feet are at the other, just underneath that halfway. So you've got 2 blocks for the leg, and then you've got a block for most of the torso, and then from here up is another block. And so that's a really nice way of instantly getting an idea of your proportions when you're sketching quickly. So let's have a little play and see how exactly he did this one. So I'm going to switch over, and for this I'm going to use charcoal, willow charcoal, compressed charcoal, and some white charcoal because it's there, isn't it? So let me stop talking, you'll be delighted to know, and put on my, where's my other camera? Bump. There we go. Oh, let's move my camera around so that we can actually see my, there we go, that's my paper. So I'll make a note of where that lies, put my light on so that you can actually see it. Is that focused nicely? I should have done this before. However, I have run in from, like I say, decorating for my mother. There we go. Right, it's about right. And I'm going to put my circle camera on because, you know, I like to be able to, it's kind of like I'm seeing you and talking to you. I will move me though so that I'm not in the way of the picture, because that will be a bit sad really, won't it? Let me move me over here. I shall disappear off into a little corner where we can still see the picture. I've got a little printed copy here which I'm just going to put next to my paper so that I can see what I am doing while and not keep looking at the screen. So let's fold this round so that I can actually get it on. Again, preparation, honestly. You'd think by now I would be okay with that. Right, let me now, what I'm going to do actually, because this is a tanned thing, I'm going to start using my charcoal. Now, have I got my, I've got some kitchen towel to blend. As you can see, it's a bit filthy, but that's fine, it doesn't matter, it's dry. So I'll be blending using this. I'm using putty rubber to erase, and I have willow charcoal, and I also have some, whoops, she says dropping it, compressed charcoal and some white charcoal. So those are the materials that I'm going to be using during this. And we're going to have a copy of, it's looking a bit difficult, Karen. The thing is with things like Degas is it looks harder than it is. So bear with. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to see how far my my camera goes. Okay, so that's my window that I've got to work in that you guys can see. That's quite important for me so I know where I'm working. I'm just going to draw that so I don't go over the lines and then quite happily drawing and you can't see what on earth I'm doing. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to copy that grid that Degas has actually put out there. So I'm going to put in a line nearest the top. That's the first line of that grid. And then I'm going to put my halfway mark. So I'm going to, if that's my foot, we want to leave space for my foot. So I'm going to put a little line there. So that's some space for my foot. I'm then going to put a halfway mark. Now, the good thing about using willow charcoal for this, as you can see, my straight lines are anything but straight, is willow charcoal will nicely rub off. So you can use grid lines and it doesn't really, you're not going to see it too bad, too much. So what we see on this little drawing here is he's kind of put in these lines that go it's a guideline as to where that leg and that head, that the side of her body is, and it's kind of weighted. So we've got one width here, so I'm going to measure that width and just see where it is, and that's basically saying we're pretty much a square. So I'm going to put in an arbitrary line down here, and I'm going to say if that's half of it and that's half of it, then my square is going to be about here, so my other half is going to come down here. So I've effectively got a grid. And that's basically what Degas done. He's started with a grid. And then what we can see, because we're looking at observation, is that this is the top of my head. And that side of this grid comes down. Basically, I've drawn all over mine. Let me just rub out what I've drawn on the printout of my copy, because we don't want that. This comes down the side of her face, and it kind of, her boob sticks out a little bit, and this also then comes down and right down to her feet. So that is our central line of where her weight is, because of course she's got this leg that comes out, and the leg that's sticking out, because we've got an extra line in here. So he's kind of gridded an extra grid in here, because of course a leg is two squares going down, which means it's going to be two squares going along as well. So we've got, let's start by putting in our rough shape. So our rough shape is we've got a head that's kind of this shape. So it's not going all the way to this side of this square here. We're kind of here, and I'm just going to shade it a little bit just to give me an idea. That's kind of where I'm looking. And this grid comes down to her shoulders actually, so that's probably a bit big. So I'm just going to take that up a bit, which we can do by just, again, love charcoal, because you can just adjust it, because the shoulder comes just below this bit here. So we've got a nice kind of shape like that. And this is kind of what we're doing. We're going to scoot around looking for shapes, and it's looking for, okay, where have we got, we're not looking for details. I'm not going to draw a face. I don't want to draw a face. That's going to be way too difficult. And this is a sketch. And even if you look at his picture, there isn't really a face there. It's just kind of a dark triangle where an eye should be. Your brain says, oh, that's an eye. That's clever. But actually, you don't see it. And what he's doing is he's looking at, okay, where's my shoulder? And I've got my arm is coming out, and it's kind of coming to, actually I should have put that second thing in here, otherwise, because now my arm is looking a little bit, because the hand kind of fits in here. And then the elbow is kind of on this line, and it's going up underneath the shoulder. So there we're kind of getting a shape, and you're just looking at shapes. So our torso, which of course is kind of a what shape should we call the torso? It's kind of like it's a rectangle really, isn't it? And it's coming through. She's turned slightly, which is interesting. And this second arm, because we can't, the shoulder is kind of coming up a little bit, because you've got that sleeve, and the arm is coming just underneath this top line, and then it comes up, and there we've got the hand is just there. No details. We don't want details. We just want to have an idea of what is my shape. My shape is along and then up. That's kind of where my shape is. You're just looking for a feel of where things are. So where we've got this waist, which is actually if you look at it, the waist is actually higher than that, isn't it? It's kind of coming here. because we've then got this skirt that's coming out, and we don't have any detail on the skirt, but what we do have is kind of a shadow coming down here, which is kind of the shadow of that central line going from her head right the way down her leg. So we want that leg shadow, and I'm just going to put in a shadow. I'm not drawing anything because of course the dress is in the way, so you can't see it. But what you're seeing is the dress kind of vanishes up here, and you've got that leg that is directly underneath her head. These are the things to kind of look for. You're looking for, where is the weight? Where is the, you know, the head, is the head directly along aligned with the leg? Because if it is, then you're going to have that sense of gravitas, because your brain is going to know that, oh, okay, yeah, that's where all the weight is on this leg. And then we're going to have that dress comes above the waist a little bit, because what we've got is this leg, and I would be inclined to draw this. I mean, Degas hasn't, because if you look at his thing, or he could have rubbed it out, I guess. But quite often you will have people artists will actually draw in, even though you can't see where the leg is under the skirt, but they'll draw that in. So then you know that the fabric is folding correctly and is in the right place. So I'm going to do that. Degas may or may not have, I don't know. He's unfortunately not around to ask. But what we do have is the foot is kind of aligned with that hand. And we're going to look at the angle. So the angle is bringing this leg. So we've got this wonderful pose. I think even when I was young and fit, I couldn't do this. Those days are long gone now. But that's fine. And then this sweep down of the dress. So we're starting to get an idea of shape and form. We don't want to put any details in. We're just looking at where are things in this picture. Now I've noticed I've got this dark line coming here. Degas used this lovely white charcoal to indicate this dress, because then it looks translucent. So I'm going to erase some of my charcoal there, but I know where it is, which is what I wanted. I know what is going on there, and I'm going to blend this so that I've got a nice shape. And I'm going to add some extra charcoal so that I can see the shape that I've got. Again, even when you're sketching, you're looking at, you know, where is the light source? What is going on? So we've got this lovely dress here, and the shadows are on the arm. They're on the body as the body kind of moves, and we can use our fingers to blend. And this gives this lovely softness. And it's just giving an idea of where things are. And we're kind of building this up, and I'm going to put that hair in a little bit more. By the way, if you have any questions, do drop them in the chat. I am here to answer all questions that you may have on technique, or, you know, what are you doing, Susan, is usually the questions I get. I'm just going to alter that line. And I may well go in with some eraser just to bring out some details, which is that's again the great thing about charcoal, is you can then shape your paintings and your designs, which is really useful thing to do. So I want to get a bit more of her bust shape in here, because I've not really got that. What we've got is this kind of shape here, where we can then see. So I'm putting a bit of extra willow charcoal on, giving a bit of a blend to soften it. So we're starting to get a bit of weight in those lines. And of course we've got this highlight here, so I'm going to take out again some of that skirt, and I'm using my eraser to carve out where I've got some highlights. And that's the really nice thing about using willow charcoal and toned paper, because you can then use your eraser to draw. And I use my eraser to draw a lot. So things aren't looking quite right here, but then that's because we've got this, that's going to be over in white. And we're going to see that come up. And what he's done is he's kind of just got the movement and the shaping. I'm going to take that and just carve out a little bit of the foot. So I'm wanting a bit more. I think I put too much dark on that front, so I'm going to give that a little bit of a light feeling to it. That leg isn't looking right at all, but that's because my angle isn't right, is it? Let me have a look. So my angle is much further down. But what I think what we've got is, she's more of a, let me redraw this, because what we've got is that kind of, she's going to be coming up like that. Now it's looking a little bit better. Again, do ask questions if you have any questions. It might be around, like I say, technique, or a simple, why have you chosen to do that? And what do you think was going through Degas' mind while he was doing this? He did some amazing studies of dancers. He famously painted this gorgeous painting of a suspended circus act, and it was quite the thing, because he actually had to rig up almost like you know, in the circus these days, and you've got these wonderful ribbon artists as well that you can spin and do all sorts of amazing things. Well, he'd rigged this a device up, so this poor life model, I really feel for her. She was in the circus. She was a dancing and circus trained lady, but she was suspended for hours a day while he worked, getting just the right balance, which is amazing. I mean, yeah, she would have been paid, and of course back then it was such a thing to be drawn to be a muse, and it was very much of a lifestyle. And of course a lot of the especially the ladies who were posing were actually very talented artists in their own right, and because of a lot of the time they weren't allowed, or they had struggled to get into, you know, the Beaux-Arts art schools in Paris, Florence, etc. What they would do is they would model for and become muses for the really famous artists, and whilst doing so they would be constantly asking questions about colour theory, about choices of paints, about how things worked, so that they were getting their art education while being a muse, and of course being paid for it too, which was great. And quite often they were able to use the studio as well afterwards to create their own paintings. Many of them went on to become actually very famous female artists. You might think, well, there's not that many female artists in that time, but actually there were. A lot of the time, unfortunately, they were kind of whitewashed over because people didn't believe that they could paint, that they must really be their husband's work or their father's work, etc. And that's a bit sad, but they are now beginning to get the recognition that they deserve, which is wonderful to see. In fact, I think in the there was a great exhibition of these Dutch female artists quite recently in Holland, which was unfortunately I didn't get to, which I'm gutted about, but I definitely want to keep an eye out for more of those. I'm just tidying up some of these lines using my putty rubber so that I'm starting to get that feel. How are you all getting on, by the way? I'm kind of yabbing on in my usual fashion, and you may have some questions, so do, like I say, drop them in the chat. I'm hoping the chat is still working. I think it is. I'm just putting on a little bit of extra dark on the head. And now this face, we are going to tackle the face a little bit. I'm not going to use willow charcoal because it's a bit clunky for what I want. And I'm just going to add in a bit of dress, skirt, etc. Just up there a moment, just to get some movement in. You're looking at the movement of how that dress is fashioned. We'll put some white in over here in a minute, I think. And we'll just lighten this up here. Again, using my putty rubber just to draw some highlights. And it's now beginning to take form and look like she's wearing a dress, and where the light is, because of course the light is coming from this direction. We've got almost like a halo effect happening. So I'm going to get switch to my willow charcoal here, and because the face is quite small, and of course with faces, as ever, let me do a little diagram here. So when we've got a face, doesn't matter where it's, so this face is a profile face. So we've got sort of the forehead coming here, and chin around here, but you still got that proportion of that thirds. So you've got a bit of a hair, that's the hairline effectively. So you've split your head into thirds. And what we've got here is, this is the side plane of the head. So this is the back of the head. And the ear, of course, connects down to the jaw. So what we've got here is our eyes. So we're going to, the acrobat was Miss Lalit Le Cirque Fernando. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Yes, it was. I'm glad you looked that up, because it's a great story, that one. I was at a atelier in Stroud with the raw umber people not that long ago, and they were talking about this because they had a setup where they had people balancing from the brain work ribbons, you know, the things, the aerial acrobats, and they took some wonderful photos, but they were saying, I can hold this for about 3 minutes tops, but nope. So it must have been so difficult. So yeah, so what we're doing on the eye is, that top third is of course the eyebrows. You want to do kind of, because we are Lala spelling, is you want to do kind of like for the eye up here on the side, you're looking at something like this. So you have your eyebrow, and all of this is going to be in shadow. So that's all what you're doing really. That's looking very shadowed actually, but that's kind of what you're doing with the face. So I'm going to have a little, so we've got the line coming down from her ear to her chin, and then I'm going to third, so this is where her eye is, and I'm just going to very gently, because I don't want to put too much effort in, just put a little bit of a scribble. The nose is quite lightened, so I'm just going to put in a little darker a line for her mouth a little bit, and then when I get my white, let's get it white out now, there's a little bit of a highlight just on her nose there, so you can kind of see a little bit of a highlight. Actually, that should be a little bit further down, shouldn't it? Let's just take that back a moment. Again, the great joys of charcoal is you can take it back and redistribute, because what I've got is, this is the jawline. We've got a gap between that and her top. I'm getting confused by this line, that's why. Let's take that line out and put our highlight in for the top edge of the neck, then I can see where my neck is. It kind of goes in and then out around the collarbone. And we've got this wonderful highlight at the top of their hair as well. And that nose, of course, comes in from the eye. She has quite a little nose actually, she's kind of coming in there. And then I will just tidy that up a bit and put a little bit of a dark for the mouth, just a touch. Let's get those eyes in. She's not looking as pretty as the one in the sketch. But put that mouth too wide, that's why. Let's move that in a bit, take that down a bit. Whatever, that's really not looking the best. Let's see if we can make that a little bit better, making it quite cheerfully worse. This is the joy of doing everything sort of live. You get to see everything in all its gory detail. I was thinking about maybe I should be practicing these before I do them live, but then I think that's a bit unfair because you guys aren't practicing it before you do it live. Do you do it with me? So I'm not going to do that. I will, of course, as you are, do it on the fly, because that's only fair, really, isn't it? I think I know what's going on here. That is super, but that needs to come back a bit. That eye needs to go up a bit. That ear needs to come down a bit. Oops. Let me just, there we go. That gives a better idea of where we are. Mine has zombie vibes. Yes, mine's giving a bit zombie vibes as well at the moment, to be fair, Karen. I'm hoping it will, what I'm going to do actually is kind of soften it slightly. And then, because what he's done is he's done it so well, I'm going to take out some of that darkness. I'm going to go back in with my willow charcoal and just shape out some of this here. Go back in with my willow charcoal because that's softer. Because actually it's faces every time. This is where I go really quiet because I'm actually concentrating. I know, me, quiet, who'd have thought? Definitely needing to work on these features. But I don't want to, because that's not, the whole point of sketching is, of course, you don't want to you want to just practice just getting an idea, and that's not what I am currently doing, because what I'm currently doing is parping about with detail, and that is not the point. So I am going to stop parping about with detail, she says, continuing to parp around with detail. Yeah, mine's really not looking great now. I don't know quite what I'm going to do to fix that. I will think about that in a minute. I'm going to go back to the dress for a bit, because we've got some white coming in the dress. So I'm going to start putting in some of these lovely highlights. And you'll notice what Degas also done, which I really like, is he's used this white charcoal for the highlight, but he's also used it in the background. So here, when he's got the leg lifted, he's lightened behind it. And that will be because he's guiding where his light source is coming from. And he's giving himself clues ready for when he's if he wants to turn this into a bigger painting, he will then be using this as clues to where things go, how it worked. And he wouldn't have spent ages on the features at all. He would have just looked at it, done a couple of little lines, a couple of gestures. I guess the difference is if you're doing lines and gestures a lot, you tend to get better at it. And if you're constantly observing, that is helpful too. So I'm just now going to have a look at this, what we've got on the chest, and put a little bit of detail, not detail, but just sort of indication of this dress and how it works. And then this arm, and just giving a little bit of shape, smoothing it. And you'll notice that he's done some shading up here. So this is probably where the shading is, as up here. It's probably where we've he's deciding, okay, where are things moving? What is going on here? Let's put some of this detailing in. I'm going to leave the face not so detailed, because it's not really, I've not got that shape right, and I don't know quite what I've done to foul up quite so impressively, but I've obviously done something. Of course, the hair isn't as black as that either. Having really dark stuff does make everything look quite harsh and zombified, which isn't always helpful. And he's left a lot of these marks without smudging, actually just looking at where have I got my darks, and he's carved the face out of those darks, and we've kind of got this really nice feel. So where he's made the emphasis is where we're seeing the darks. So where we've got the shape of the bodice. A little bit of how the skirt's moving. A little bit of, how the arm is held, how that hand comes round. Ooh, that was interesting. I made a little thumbs up thing, and I'm not quite sure how that worked. So we've got this as a little light shape. So I'm looking at where my light shapes are now. I'm just looking at where are these emphasis being held. We've got a bit of white coming in at the top of here. We've got a bit of white coming in here at the top of her clavicle. We've got a little bit of white on the foot there, just on the back of the heel. And you can kind of see it starting to take shape a little. I'm really annoyed with how that head's gone. I usually love portraits as well. But obviously it's not a portrait day for me today. So I'm not going to dwell, she says, quite cheerfully dwelling and trying to change things. But this is it's a nice exercise, like I say, to have a go at. Copying old masters is such a great way to kind of learn about how things are, how they did things, what did they use, why did they use their, what did they use their practice for? Because these sketches were for a purpose. The more I'm sketching this, the worse I am making it. Story of my life. This is what I tend to do. I'll completely come in and just, yeah, no. I'm going to stop making my dancer look like a zombie. She says, continuing to make her dancer look more like a zombie. Obviously not a day for people for me today. That's fine. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to kind of smudge it and make it so that it's all about the dress. And that's what you can do. So that's one dancer. And it is now 10 to 9. Oh my goodness. Well, 10 to 8 your time. I do want to do another one though, because I do want to have a look at, especially this one. I love this one, and it has a little bit of colour in. So I might have a play with that and have a look at it again later and just see, what I can do just to play around with it. Because like I say, it's interesting that he's used the grid lines. I've now lost the head, which is such a lovely portrait, this one, which I've quite cheerfully completely ruined. So it would be nice to do this again and do it better. So I think I might do that in slower time, which is ridiculous because he would have done this really super quickly. So I'm going to turn over my page. You can see my messy background there. Sorry about that. And I'm very quickly, in 10 minutes, going to have a little look at this one. So let me change my, let's take that image out and put this image on. So again, is that the top of the image? Struggling to plant the foot on the floor. It's difficult. It really is difficult. Andy, yes, I feel you. So the foot on the floor on the previous one, let me bring that camera back, that picture back up again, turn this one off. It's a really difficult pose to look at, because I'm having to put this up because otherwise I'm pointing and I can't point to the photo on the screen. It's at a funny angle because of course she's dancing and she's in a particular pose. So having a darker line where you've got a body hitting the floor gives that weight to make it look like it's actually on the floor. So if you notice Degas here, he's got a lot darker towards the bottom of her foot, and this line here is a very definite line, and he's put a little smudge underneath, which is almost like the beginning of a shadow. What he's effectively done is dragged his hand down here, but it helps give that the gravitas. So having that extra thick line where something hits the floor, that's where you've got that you haven't got a floor, so not a problem for me, says Karen. Well done. Feet often end up trundling off the page for me because they are a pain. But yes, core shadow. It's the core shadow. So there is a part of the shadow when we're drawing circles, pears, apples, all that sort of thing, there's a bit of shadow where no light reaches, and that's usually where an object is sat on the floor, and there's a tiny bit, and that is the darkest dark. So if you make that the darkest dark, it's going to ground whatever it is that you're drawing, and that works for all things really. So let me get my dancer back up and move that one out the way. I'm going to do this super quick because we literally have 8 minutes. I know, super quick. There's no grid lines on this one, interestingly, but so let me just draw out a square as to what you can see on your screen and what I've got in front of me, so I know how much I've... No problem, Andy, no problem. So I've got a boundary, effectively. Now this is an interesting pose because we're almost diagonal, so we've got the elbow right up in the corner here, and you've kind of got... So I'm going to start by just blocking out... We love our rectangles and triangles, don't we? But it is basically a shape like that. I'd love to know the name of that shape. I'm sure you guys probably do. And there's kind of, the skirt is just literally just coming out of here. They always have bows on, don't they? In Degas dancers. And then kind of wiggles off, but he's not really interested. He's kind of looking at composition, and we've got this lovely diagonal composition. I should really have done a little measurement there, shouldn't I? Okay, so that should be about half of... Oh, that was handy. What I was doing then, sorry, I realised I did that off camera, is I was just looking at little comparative measurement here. So the top, so that lovely shape that I drew, which is kind of this shape here, how much of a page is that? And it's about half. It kind of, it's there really, isn't it? Let's measure that. So from the top of her head to the bottom of that bodice is about just over the skirt. So if I did that as the top of the head, that's the bottom of the bodice. I want my skirt to be up slightly higher than that. So I want that to be, but the skirt isn't really the bit that's of interest. Those are just kind of lines to help us. So it starts with basic shapes. You're looking for your squares, your triangles, your circles, that sort of thing. And we kind of go from here. So this is our elbow. And we're coming down to, okay, I'm going to do some more comparative measurements here. So from the bodice to that underarm there, about half. That's handy. So this is kind of where our underarm is going to be. So that kind of, and it comes in a bit from our square, because we then kind of come out to where that breast is and then come back in again. And our elbow comes down on this wonderful slant down to where the back of her head is. So she's kind of looking up, but we can't see her face. Thank goodness we're not going to have that problem again. We can a bit, but not much. But we're kind of looking at a square again. Bun on the back of her head there. And she's coming down like so. And then we've got that other elbow there. Again, we're looking at a triangle. So we're looking for our triangles, our squares, our circles. Break everything down into those sorts of shapes because we know those shapes and it just makes life a little easier. So what I've got here is we've got this thinnish arm here, and we've got this that comes down around here, and we've got the dress, which is kind of like a square coming under this hand, and we've got the hands that meet on the other side, and we've got this wonderful dress, which he's kind of concentrating on the shape of the back here, isn't he? In fact, I don't know why I'm guessing this, because what I should be doing, of course, is, let's take that middle out, comparative measurements. So let's have a little look. Let's find something. So let's say the length of that arm is kind of goes in a shape like that. We've already got that's about halfway from the base there, which is kind of, we're coming in here, so there to there is about halfway, which is what we've got. This then, what's this shape? How long is this compared to? That kind of goes to the top of their shoulder. So here kind of goes to, that's the top of the shoulder there. So that arm is actually is thinner than you think it is. And that kind of comes up. And then this bit, so you've got a tiny shape in here, which is that bit in her arm there. And we've got this kind of squiggly bit. So if we're looking at what's her, so from the back here to the bottom of that dress, that's about there, and that's about, and then there's a little bit extra. So if I was going to do that, and that has to be higher than that, and that. That's interesting. So what I need to do is, this isn't at the right angle. Or is it? No, that is at the right angle. So what have I got? This is 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. So 1, 2. Ooh, okay. So what I'm thinking is this actually comes further down. And the head comes further down. So we've got this kind of effect coming on. That's her hair. I'm going to mask that in. We've got this bun. And then this dress is kind of coming up around here, and we've got these wonderful fabric lines, which is what he's looking at with his white marks. And we've got the spine, you can see the spine coming in here, so we can see how the spine works. This kind of comes in and down here. Kind of goes straight. In fact, we've got that extra line. So we're starting to get our shape, and that's how we begin. We begin by looking at what are our shapes, how are they working. We've got the face here that's coming in, and then it's going to come down here eventually. We've got the hair, we've got an ear here, which means our eyes are here. We've got darker happening, looking where our shadows are, and squinting is where we've got this. But what's interesting with this piece is his use of shading coming out as well. So we've got this shaded here. And he's got this wonderful white around and yellows and these shades for shadows coming on his background across here. which is fascinating. I'm speeding up now because I'm very aware of the time. I would have used a sanguine pencil on this too, and just get a little bit of flesh colour in there. But you can see how using those initial kind of shapes is a really important thing. And you're just looking at form, of movement, of how things are working, and you've instantly got a little study there, which is giving you your dancer in this instance. I'm just putting in some shaping with my putty rubber. And what I could do is get some of my hard white pastel and just quickly put in, and you can instantly see on that tan what a difference that makes. Again, like anything, when you're doing a fabric or something like that, or even fur or anything, put your lines down in the direction of your of your object. So like fur or fabric, look at the direction of the folds and put your pastel or your pencil in that direction. So what we've got a wonderful bit of yellow coming in there as well. I'm going to put a little bit in, and then I'm going to disappear off because I'm aware that we are over time, but I'm really enjoying this one and I want to continue. And the great thing about using a gold or a yellow, in this instance I've got a little orange hard pastel that I've just picked up from my box, but that actually looks brighter than our white because of how it sits on the colour spectrum, which makes for very interesting composition. And we can put something in of a, I've done that in a sort of, have I got a rough colour pastel that's kind of skin toned? No, I haven't. That's annoying. I've got a sanguine pencil, a Conti. I'll just roughly block in a little bit of skin tone. See, he's used oils here, really diluted, because if he's sketching quickly, you don't have the time for oils to really sort of settle. So he's kind of put, there's a warm colour here, and there's warmth. You're looking at where are your warms and where are your cool colours. So he's putting some warms in where the skin's sort of near the wall there. I'll take some of that out a moment. But so there you have an example of how a painting would have evolved, and why, of course, they did these wonderful studies to just, and then of course they would come back to their studios and look at how to work these into other designs and paintings, etc. And this was just the start of how they then created their wonderful masterpieces. They would have people posing in the studio as well, but quite often a lot of their paintings came from these little snatched studies, these little impressions from life, which are just fabulous. So I'm hoping this has been useful for you. I could go on for about this one and do more for hours and hours, but I am aware we are 10 past the hour already. So I'm going to turn this picture off, turn my video camera off. Oh gosh, there's two of me. Let's get rid of that one. Turn my light off, move my camera out of the way. And yes, I have indeed enjoyed that one better, Karen. It's really nice when you have the shapes to start with. It's really a nice, oh, look at me, charcoal everywhere. I did have a blending thing. Did I use it? No. It's really nice to be able to have that. And of course, in true Sue style, there's been no practice. There's been no proprietary whatever. I'm doing this with you. So it's looking at how do you go about, how do you start? And sometimes it doesn't work. And that's great, that's fine. It's looking at, okay, why didn't it work? What went wrong? What was I doing? So when we were doing this one, I spent a lot of time on the face, and that is a common thing to do, which is spending too much time on the thing that you think is important, because we're all drawn to faces, when in actual fact, the most contrast in this picture is where the leg and the torso meet here. That is the bit of interest, is looking at the pose, not the features. So that was absolutely on me, concentrating on something that actually wouldn't have been important to Degas. And that was what we were looking at today. So there's always something, you just kind of fall into old habits, don't you, sometimes? But if you would like to know more or all the things, subscribe to my channel. Come and join me in the Academy or the Sketching Club. You'll be most welcome. The details are down below. We have live sessions regularly. And of course, there will be another one of these the first Thursday in August. Oh my goodness. Hopefully there won't be another heat wave going on. And I don't know, what do you fancy doing? You'll have to let me know. Drop me an email or tag me on social media with anything that you've done tonight, or anything you feel you've done that from any of my workshops or courses or whatever, and just maybe drop me a little message. Tag me at Sue Melville without an E on the Sue, because there's no E in Susan, so why would you shorten a name and then add a letter? Weird. And that's it. I've been gassing too long already. Who'd have thought? I will love you and leave you. Have a wonderful time sketching. Have a play. Just experiment. Like I say, use inspiration from other artists, or just draw whatever is in front of you. But experiment, play in your sketchbook, and have a play with toned papers. Makes a big difference. Okay, all my hair is falling out of my bun. I'm going to go. I will see you all soon. No problem, Andrew. No problem, Karen. I will talk to you later. Bye.